Everyone ready? Everybody ready down there? The Madison County Board of Education regular session for Thursday, August 8th, 2019 is in session. Ms. Rucker, would you mind giving us the invocation?
Our Father, Lord, we just come to you and we just want to lift up your name. And Father, help us in all that we do tonight to follow your will. And we pray for our schools and all the students and staff. Lord, we pray your blessings on them and that you would give them your wisdom and counsel. We ask these things in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
All right, item B. I recommend approval of the agenda dated August 8th, 2019.
I have a motion and a second for the recommendation of approval for the agenda dated August 8th, 2019. Is there any discussion? If there is none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Item C. I recommend approval of the minutes dated July 1st, July 11th, July 25th, and August 1st, 2019.
Motion. Second.
I have a motion and a second for the recommendation of approval of the minutes dated July 1st, July 11th, July 25th, and August 1st, 2019. Any discussion? If there is no discussion, all those in favor say aye.
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 Superintendent update. So we got school started yesterday, and I will say that I think just about all of our schools are in mid-season form. Very impressed with our administrators and our teachers and, stopping to visit schools. Our leadership team, we were in every school so far in each of our schools this week, and we're continuing visits throughout the rest of this week and early next week. Again, just to check in and see how things are going. Again, a few hiccups, and we're still working on transportation. A celebration as we were able to cut a couple of our routes down by about an hour today. So we're still working on that and still making some changes. So I want to thank the Transportation Department and Mr. McCord for making those changes as we move forward. So we're going to go ahead and move into informational items. Capital plan discussion. Aurora? As we know, we are at discussion number 2 for the capital plan. We do need it approved before our September 20th board meeting. So we have this meeting and one more if we would like to have any more discussions. So I'm going to open the floor for questions that y'all have.
The version,
Relief to see that what we got on our scrolling agenda, everything was unfunded, so I thought maybe we'd lost.
Yes, no, ma'am. No, ma'am. We corrected that clerical error.
Yes.
Mine's still
That's
funded.
good.
The difference in the previous item that was given to you also, so we had I think I sent it to you today. The Walnut Grove roof was on there twice. And looking at the Walnut Grove roof, a previous version a year or so ago of that roofing project was to replace the entire roof. I believe that roof had major work done to it somewhere around 1995, 1996 was the last time that it had some major work. I think it's item 58-ish. I don't actually have it. I'll have to scroll down and take a peek.
54?
Aurora, can you scroll down for
Walnut
me?
Grove, yeah.
I need my human clicker back there. 54?
Yes.
So the item number 54 that's on the capital plan right now is just for some repairs. So it is not a roof replacement. I wish it would be a roof replacement at $160,000, but that is just some repairs to get by.
So 1995 is 25 years ago, right? Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. 20 years ago, whatever it is.
Yeah.
25. So that's a long time. So that doesn't seem, it seems like it'd be due a new roof.
Hey, Joe, can I ask you to hop up to the mic there for you so they can hear you? Joe's been helping us. Joe, Troy, and Carrie have been helping us with the capital plan. So he had made some phone calls on that project today. So, Joe, can you give us any updates on the Walnut Grove?
On Walnut Grove, you say that 25 years is a long time. A lot of the roofs are guaranteed or warranted for 30 years. So we have 2 areas at Walnut Grove that need some repairs now. That's why we have it on here at 160 for repairs.
What areas? I mean, I went out there one time, there were like buckets, different places.
Yes, we have two areas primarily. One's there in front of the cafeteria in that hall, and one leading on back to the pod in the hall as well. So I've had a contractor look at both of those so that we can get those repaired. Mhm. That's the two main areas in that school that's got a problem.
And the rest of it, you think is going to last 25 plus how many more years?
Well, I mean, we should get 30 years out of the roof. And that's something that Dr. Minsky and I talked about today. Moving forward from here, I wouldn't be opposed to having someone with a roofing expert to go out with us. Let's line item these roofs, try to get a timeline on what's remaining so that you're having real information in front of you so you can make, your decisions from.
Other comments, questions?
Then 48 through 51, those are safety upgrades. So is that not more of a priority than some of the other things, or is it not?
Those are actually, and I'm gonna let Joe. We're talking about the door replacements.
One at Madison Crossroads, Central, Walnut Grove, Owens Crossroads.
Yes.
If I understand that correctly, those, we have doors in place. They're getting to the point where they're not closing. They don't close as easily as they would be if they're new.
Right.
And that's the reason that some of these are on there, is to kind of
So they
make those
work.
upgrades.
Yeah, it's not that they're a
They
security
work.
issue now
Yes.
at all. They meet all egress, life safety codes, the closures, but in anything, they start to get worn. Hinges start to wear. It gets to a point where you've adjusted and replaced parts long enough that it is something that we would replace at some time. Not unlike what we're doing at New Hope Elementary School with this project that's starting there. We will be replacing all the exterior doors, or the majority of the exterior doors at New Hope Elementary with the addition to the school there. And that's what we're looking at in this here too. Something we need to be looking at down the road to upgrade all those doors, but there's not a problem with them now. But they do get worn out, they'll start rusting.
But they're fully functional.
Yes, they are. Mhm. And our plant managers, they are on top of that. I mean, part of their walk around and daily duties is checking all exterior doors. We want to make sure that, the kids are safe inside and nobody can come in from any of the doors that they're not supposed to be.
And what I failed to mention earlier, last time we discussed it, we had a couple items that were higher up, and I've asked Troy, Joe, and Carrie to go through that list. And in your opinion, what are the most important things that we need to do these in order of, these things are pretty much high priority, that they're failing, we need to start working down the list. So that's kind of what your list you see now is, and that's the changes from the last board meeting.
So I don't see any additional safety upgrades on this list until we get to
18,
18.
number 18, we still
number
left that
18.
up towards the top.
Okay, Matt, I got you.
$500,000
Yeah,
for
okay.
the safety
I'm sorry.
upgrades. There is a strong possibility we'll also have the advancement in technology money next year, again, that is issued by the state, and then we can also look at using some of those funds if need be,
But how
upgrading the safety.
much of number 18 have we accomplished? Because I know we allotted $750,000 for safety upgrades.
And I want to say, I'm pretty sure that money has been spent. Am I correct, Mark Wilson? Yes.
Yeah.
Some of that's obligated,
Right.
less than 100.
Okay.
I had a grandparent ask me yesterday, when I was at Madison County High School, why we did not provide student identification badges for our students as a safety measure, with the pictures. She saw mine. She says, "You have that capability, evidently." And I said, "Well, we do." So I know that Huntsville City did that last year, I think, didn't they, after a problem? So I didn't know if there was a reason why we did or did not.
At this point, that's something we have not discussed. It's something we can definitely look into, but it's not something that we've actually put on. And when we went through our safety audit a year ago, that's an item that did not come up as far as an issue at our schools.
She just said a lot of times that they would want a picture ID and they would accept a school identification badge rather than something else. I don't know what the cost of that would be.
Dan, do you know what the logistics of that, how that would work?
The cost, you know, you're looking at probably $1 a badge, the amount of time to collect 20,000 pictures and get them all in one place.
Right.
Monumental.
And you're just talking about badges, you're not talking about digital, like access control badges, are you?
Oh, no. That's what I said. You know, we couldn't scan in.
Right, right. I just be sure.
And I'm not sure how much we could work with the picture companies type thing, if that's something that we could look at too.
And I don't know,
To
I'm
help
just
putting pictures.
putting that on the table for discussion.
Okay.
You get a file, it's just a, like I say,
Time,
takes,
right,
get one out.
right.
with 20,000.
What would be the purpose of it?
Just to have an idea.
As a student identification badge that just has a picture so that you know that that's actually a student is supposed to be in that building.
I wonder, that probably didn't bubble up because it probably doesn't add a lot of safety value as I think about it. I mean, it is good for a student to have, you know, if they need an ID, but at the same time, a student that's a challenge could also have that badge or put a badge on or take another student's badge and,
Right.
you know, impersonate. So
I lived in the 60s when we had dog tags and we walked.
there you go. Same concept.
The other piece there is also looking at from a building administrator is trying to maintain, okay, you don't have your ID badge today, what do you do? What's the
Right,
backup plan
right.
type thing? So it's something we can definitely look at, this stuff.
So when do you think is a good estimate that we can consider rebidding the Lynn Fanning? I know we don't have the funds to complete it at this time, but when do you think would be a good estimate? You think, I know we talked about fall, and I think at this point, that's probably not wise to do at this point. So are we looking at spring time frame, or when's a good time frame to do that?
The problem going into the fall is if the winter. We do have some contractors right now that are wrapping up some of our other projects, so I think we may get more bidders this next time around. It sounds from what I'm learning on the jobs, everyone still has plenty to do at this time. So, you know, maybe late winter, when I say winter, November. Way I can see it, get it bid. If the price comes in, you approve it, so we could look at a springtime start. Just due to the weather, you don't lose all the weather days, you're not working in the mud, that type of thing. And hopefully we would have more bidders this next time around. But it does seem to be, at this time, maybe a few more people that are interested in bidding.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay, that's good.
I think if we started to look at that, I would most certainly want to talk to the architects and see if they are seeing the same thing that we are, or what I am out in the field, and make sure they agree, get a consensus. Yeah.
When do we get these extra funds? Like, we got about 5 million, or I'm not sure, that might not be the right number. Yeah,
Yeah.
right, but what's the timing of that? Is that the spring?
Through September 30, 2020.
So we have the funds now, so that.
But we have until
Right.
2020.
Right, but we knew about them when? I mean, when do they materialize? That
Yeah.
might be a good time to bid it, because then you might tap into some of those. I know you can't probably tap into them directly, but you can rearrange.
Right,
Yeah.
right, yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Those funds are not for capital projects, but it can be used.
You can finagle
Yeah.
and get.
Right.
get it essentially.
Yeah. And then we're also talking that potential bond issue that the state is looking at down the road or within the next year, which would be significant capital improvement funds for the school system.
And hopefully as the school year goes on, we'll be able to get a little bit more information about that.
Any other questions for Mark?
Thank you, Joe.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Discussion of the Madison County Schools virtual education policies. Mr. Tim Solly, Director of Instruction and Academic Accountability. Thank you, sir.
you. I sent this, or it's in your folder, and I gave you a hard copy at your seat there tonight. But there's kind of two main things that we tried to accomplish in rewording this policy. The first of those was to try to replace the verbiage, you'll see it in blue a lot with the strike through, but participate in the virtual education program. That's the verbiage that's in that very first line where 7.13.1 is, and that comes directly from the state law that requires school systems to have a virtual education program or offer that for schools. So when we wrote the policy initially, that's how we referred to our virtual education. But now that it's actually a school, I just felt like we needed to state that in the policy to attend the Madison County School System Virtual Academy. So you'll see that change. It's in 3 or 4 places throughout this document. So hopefully that's just kind of semantics, generally speaking. The other, probably the more substantial change is trying to eliminate verbiage in here that says that our virtual school can remove kids if they're not being successful. They're a school. Their job is to meet the needs of our kids. If our kids are not being successful in this program, the expectation is that they put additional supports in place to help the child be successful. That support doesn't include, okay, you've got to leave and go back to your traditional school. It doesn't inhibit a parent from withdrawing their child from the virtual school or virtual academy. So if your child is not being successful and you recognize that and you think, we would rather them be in a traditional school setting, the parent has the right to go in and withdraw from that school and enroll in the school where they're zoned to attend. So we've tried to eliminate language in this because when it was a program, that was one of the stipulations, that a child had to maintain success in our virtual program in order to continue to be a part of that. So again, it was kind of to change it to reflect the fact that this is a school now and not just a program within that school. We did take out on the back of the page, we did take out some language relative to attendance. And again, it was about being removed from the program if certain attendance measures were not met. So again, we're going to handle that differently. If a child's not meeting the attendance requirements, we'll handle that differently other than removing the student from the program. But just, obviously tonight wanted to share our thinking with you and why we were proposing these changes, get your feedback if there's additional things you want us to look at or consider before we ask you to vote for approval of this. So any thoughts or things you'd like to add? Or
Are there parameters around when you can get in? Like, you have to get in a certain time before school starts, or?
We don't list any in policy. Obviously, we encourage the beauty of a virtual program is a child can work it. They can work 24 hours a day on their content and make progress toward that, so they can work at a faster pace. But I don't think we would put a stipulation that there's like a cutoff time to that, but certainly that would be a conversation. If a parent wanted to enroll, that's something that Ms. Shoemate would advise them on, but there wouldn't be a barrier to enrollment based on timing. Just trying to think out loud. Obviously, the later in the semester, the later in the school year that a student attempted to enroll, we would have to think about how those courses were offered and what the child still needed to do to show mastery of the standards in whatever courses they were enrolled in. But I don't know. That's something we certainly could consider, but we don't have that in here right now.
So to move from a brick and mortar school to being a student at the virtual academy would be like a transfer?
Yes. Either way,
Okay, right.
yeah. Yeah, they're set up as a call center, just like any of our other 27 schools are right now. Their students are in iNow associated with their building, with their call center.
So do we have a cap on the number of students we can take right now like we did when we started this?
No,
or-
it's open enrollment. We have 240, as of this afternoon. We have 9 students that were absent on the first day. 6 of those we know plan to attend, were absent for, various and sundry reasons. 250 is the sort of the magic number from the state for it to continue to be a school. Every other year, within the first 3 weeks of virtual being open, our enrollment typically goes up, 10, 20 students. Right now, I don't anticipate us having a problem meeting that requirement before the 20-day count, so.
I know everything's not about athletics, but let's say you're taking 20 students out of a high school that might impact their, their classification when the Alabama High School Athletic Association reclassifies, but yet those children are, it's legal for them to go back and play at their home
Correct.
school. Is that
Mhm.
correct?
That is correct, yeah. And Mr. Everett is working with the virtual school to make sure that eligibility-wise through C2C is the portal that the HSAA uses to ensure athletic eligibility, and he's working with the base schools and the virtual academy to make sure all that's being handled. We have 3 student athletes, 3 right now, Lavelle? Oh, okay, I'm sorry. I thought we discussed that, okay. So about 20 students out of that group that's currently currently enrolled in virtual that are participating in athletics at the school where they're zoned to attend.
So you don't divvy them back out for the ASA?
That's correct. Yeah, they don't count against their, I'm correct, Lavelle, they don't count against their numbers for classification for that. Eventually, I think we will actually request for virtual to be a part of the Alabama High School Athletic Association. That we have discussed doing that previously, so there is.
Its own
Yeah,
athletic center.
that, they may be able to offer, certainly, some of the spring sports, maybe some things like that, so.
How many of the younger grades do we have?
Students in grades 3, 6, I believe 10 as of the other day. Mhm.
Is there any consideration of like a hybrid where you have students that are at their home school and still want to, maybe level up on some classes and take some virtual classes as well?
Yeah, and so we handle that through the local school. We don't do it through the virtual academy, but each of our traditional schools has access to OdysseyWare, which is the curriculum that we use. And we give them authorization each semester to offer up to 2 virtual classes to their student. If there's a reason they need to offer more than 2, I ask that they get district permission to do that, just to make sure we're using it appropriately in the way that we should do that. We do have several students this year. One thing that it's helping with is with students that are involved in athletics or band or an extracurricular class at their base school that usually requires them to be in a class for that. Those kids have had a difficult time attending our Career Tech Center. So now what we're doing with several students is they will take one of their core classes on through OdysseyWare, and by freeing up that, in essence, that core class, then it is allowing those students to come to our Career Tech Center this time. And for for some reason, I don't know if it's because Mr. Everett just said 20, but the number 20 is sticking in my head, is that's sort of about the number of kids that are taking advantage of that this year. So, but I know it was a dozen or two that are doing that this year.
And if a student does want to take a virtual class through their home school, say Sparkman High, that still is managed by the virtual academy, not by the high school?
Is managed by the high school. They manage that. They have, with this particular program, we had to purchase individual seats. So there are schools, they don't have unlimited access to it. They are going to have to manage their seats. They should have enough that they can meet the needs of pretty much any kid that needs it. But this also works as their credit recovery program. So if a student took Algebra 1 last year, didn't pass it, they can take it again through Odyssey, where it's a credit recovery course. And generally, they're able to work through that a little bit quicker and recover that credit for a failed class. So,
Can you audit a class?
we haven't done that yet. We haven't done that so far. I guess I'm not sure. Haven't had that question yet.
Especially when kids take Algebra 1 in 8th grade,
Mm-hmm.
and they don't take Algebra 2 till 9th. I mean,
Or
like-
10th grade even, possibly.
Oh, yeah, that's what I meant,
Yeah.
10th. Yeah, that's a whole year of forgetting.
Most of our schools now, if a student takes Algebra 1 in 8th grade, they're giving them at least the opportunity to take Geometry and Algebra 2 with Trig in the 9th grade, so they're not having that additional year gap. But if they didn't, I guess that would be something we would have to consider.
I mean, you just do it to kind of brush up.
Yeah, I mean to have a student engaged with it, the grade is only going to be taken if somebody does something with it. You're right. I mean, it wouldn't be a harm in using the program as an audit class. That's true. Yeah. My only hesitation is we do have a limited number of seats, so I guess I just would want to make sure they're managing them for students that need it for credit first, but that's certainly a possibility.
And
Any
the
other I'm
question
sorry.
I had was,
Yeah.
okay, so we're doing it for the 1920 year, you have a virtual school. So what's the count based on? Because it's in a year retro, right? I mean,
Well, it'll be based on the 20-day count that will start the day after Labor Day and be the 20 school days following Labor Day. They'll take a snapshot of each of our schools, and that's where the funding mechanism comes from for the virtual academy. So, like I said, right now, they're going to be around 250 students, more than likely when that 20-day count happens. That probably is going, depending on how many of those students are 3rd through 12th graders. My calculations, it looked like they would generate about 13 teacher units based on that enrollment. So, you know, and then the funding that comes along with 13 teacher units, classroom supply funds, technology funds, those kinds of things that follow any of our teacher units in our traditional school. And also accountability comes with that, so they would get a report card grade the following year, and
our
all those
other
things.
schools, their counts are based on last September.
That's correct.
So we're double counting those students this year, more or less?
Not this year, we're not. They will count with our virtual this year. You're correct, and how we funded the virtual school this year, we counted those, because they have 3 teachers, so we counted those teachers in, I believe, Ms. O'Bannon, with our career tech numbers, and charged those back out to our schools that had the student population to basically pay for those teachers. So
So we took them away from the real school this year.
that's right.
Okay.
The students are not counting in their, where they were zoned, where they attended last year. They're not counting in their ADM for this year. That's right. They will count in the virtual schools, ADM.
Except for those that take a virtual class at their home school if they're enrolled at Buckhorn.
Yeah, if they're enrolled at Buckhorn or Sparkman, whatever, they count on their ADM. They have nothing to do with the virtual school, virtual academy. That's right.
Tim, what does a teacher's responsibility look like in the virtual academy?
Yeah, so it kind of depends right now, but like when Ms. Shoemate gave y'all the presentation, we have a full-time secondary math, language arts, and an elementary teacher that work there. Ms. Shoemate also, who is certified in social studies and English, she helps, their job is to assist students during the day, whatever that takes. It may be if the student comes in for tutoring. They may assist in, making sure that the test is queued up and ready to take. They, a lot of times, will answer questions if a kid takes an assignment and they feel like something wasn't graded right, or they have a question about why this happened, they're their first line of defense. So, and they're doing that, for 250 students every day, potentially. Obviously, 250 kids are not in the lab with them every day. So, but it's not uncommon for, 35, 40, 50 kids to be there at any given time throughout the school day. The kids come in. And then we contract with a couple of foreign language teachers to help grade English and Spanish and French assignments. And then we also contract with one of our teachers from our alternative school to work after hours to help with some upper level science classes, do some tutoring and grading assignments and those things. So, but that's, their work is not virtual. Some of it is, but some of it's hands-on, kids sitting with them and doing whatever other teacher does. So.
And we have 3 locations, 13.
We have 4 locations, so the secondary grades either meet at the Career Tech Center or this year at Hazel Green High School. We took them off Sparkman 9's campus while the construction's going on and just tried to get one less thing from happening over there for right now. And then the elementary grades either meet at Mount Carmel or Monrovia Elementary. So we kind of have an east campus and a west campus for both elementary and secondary. And if you have any other, things you want us to consider before we bring it back, certainly reach out to Dr. Minsky or myself. We'll be glad to take a look. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sally.
Thank you.
Mark.
Moving on to administrative items. Item A, I recommend approval of the following personnel items as submitted.
Motion.
Second.
I have a motion and a second for the recommendation of approval of the following personnel items as submitted. Any discussion? On page 3, whenever people decide to leave, it's a sad thing, but I do have a question about number 2. And I'd like to know, and probably Ken's probably the best person to respond, but how is that going to have an impact here within the central office?
That's Mary's personnel.
Which one are you asking about?
Page 3, number 2.
Oh, okay.
Well, we have posted the position and we're trying to refill, but it's difficult to find those people who fill those positions with that particular certification that are willing to work basically on the teacher post scale. That particular certification. So it could have an impact in that we might have to contract an outside company to provide some services if we want to replace that.
Mr. Kubik and I've already had a conversation with Ms. Stump, so one of the things that we're going to look at is, again, as we always look at the salary schedule each year, that's one of the areas I think we kind of need to take a peek at is our special education department and make sure that we're compensating people enough to be able to keep
Yeah,
them.
that's a significant loss for you and your staff. So it's sad to see that individual depart. But yeah, that's probably not a bad idea to relook at the salary schedules for those.
Is that the underlying reason, or do we know?
But my understanding is that that was a part of the reason.
Part of the reason, yeah. Any additional discussion?
Well, I would just like to say that when we do accept this, we'll also be losing somebody who I think has helped the board out a great deal
Yeah.
over the past several years. And won't mention any names since we haven't voted yet, but if she'd like to rescind now, we can make that happen.
Never too late.
It's never too late.
Not that she's here,
Never too late.
but if you wanted to change your mind,
You're welcome to do so. We haven't voted yet.
thought we might just give you the option.
We can amend this. So, thanks. If there's no further discussion, all those in favor say aye.
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 Reluctantly, aye.
Yes.
Thank you, Priscilla.
You will be sorely missed, Priscilla. Thank you very much for your service to the school system, to the central office, to the board, all that you've done for us over the last, before some of us were here and after. We appreciate it greatly. You did a great job, and you will be sorely missed. So good luck in your future endeavors. Thanks.
Item B, I recommend approval of the following supplemental contracts as submitted.
Motion.
Second.
I have a motion and a second on the recommendation of approval of following supplemental contracts as submitted. Any discussion? There's any discussion? If there's no discussion, all those in favor say aye.
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 Item C, I recommend approval of the following contracts for services.
Motion.
Second.
I have a motion and a second for the recommendation of approval of the following contracts for services. Any discussion? I think that's the smallest list I've seen in a while. If there's no discussion, all those in favor say aye.
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 Item D, I recommend the following employees be suspended without pay.
Motion.
Second.
I have a motion and a second for the recommendation of this, for the suspension of the following employees as displayed. Is there any discussion? No, I guess we can't have any discussion on that.
Discussion, we have to move in.
Yeah. If there's no discussion, all those in favor say aye.
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 Item E, I recommend the board authorize Mary Stump to negotiate and enter into a resolution session agreement, mediation agreement, or settlement agreement in a special education complaint regarding a special needs student.
Motion.
Second.
I have a motion and a second for the recommendation that the board authorize Mary Stump to negotiate and enter into a resolution, session agreement, mediation agreement, or settlement agreement in a special education complaint regarding a special needs student. I don't think we can discuss this either. Okay. If there's no questions, all those in favor say aye.
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 Other business is all yours, sir.
The only other thing that I have is for the board, as we work through the superintendent search, I have, and I owe it to you, the schedule for the interviews for next week with Mr. Wilson on the 19th. I kind of thought maybe starting from about 12 o'clock on, we have a meeting at 5:15 that evening to get the results of the survey, and then of the first budget hearing or first budget presentation from Karen is also that evening. So I'll send that to you all in an email. You don't need to give it to me tonight. I'll send it to you in an email, and you can tell me your preferred times. That's 1 hour session with Mr. Wilson so that he can interview us. So, does anybody else have anything they'd like to share with the board, the group?
I do.
Sure.
I want to start by saying that Miss Mary Louise Stowe is the gold standard for boardmanship, and I think you will be hard-pressed to find anyone who has given as much to their community. And so it is my honor to call for a vote of the board to move forward with a nomination for Miss Mary Louise Stowe for the AASB All-State School Board.
Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Do I have a second? I have a motion and a second for the nomination of Ms. Mary Louise Stowe for the AASB All-State School Board. Any discussion? Any further discussion? Is it what?
Because I'm old.
No.
Thank you.
I agree with Angie. I couldn't think of a more better qualified individual for that post, so. If there's any other discussion or anything, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Congratulations, Mary Louise. Anything else?
Did we just vote to hire our first female football coach, assistant football coach? Is that the first female we've ever had?
Lavelle?
I think so.
I'm just going to say that's kind of a milestone.
I think it is. Mm-hmm.
That's kind of cool. Probably should point that out.
Yeah.
We don't do that very often around here.
I miss it with school.
I'm sorry?
What school?
Not Monroeville, Meridianville.
Meridianville.
See how that helps Hazel Green out in the future? Go Bucks.
Put 'em over.
All right.
That'll be your.
If there's nothing else, we do not have anything for executive session this evening, so if there's no other business, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
Motion.
Motion.
I have a motion and a second to adjourn the meeting. All those in favor say aye.
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 Record.
We are adjourned.
Goodness
No, we've had some.
gracious.